Hello, everybody. Not guilty by identity. That is a very powerful statement. How the trans community is blamed and what the data really shows. Across conversations, headlines, and policy debates, a cruel shorthand has taken hold. When something violent or shocking happens, some people reflexively look for a type to blame, and transgender people are too often that ready-made target. This idea that trans people are inherently more dangerous or criminal circulates quickly. It harms lives and shapes public policy. But when we stop repeating the rumor and look at the evidence, a different, clearer picture emerges. Number one, the data show transgender people are far more often victims, not perpetrators. Multiple nationally oriented studies and analysis find that transgender and broader LGBTQ plus populations experience violent victimization at substantially higher rates than cisgender people. The Williams Institute analysis of the National Crime Victimization Survey, NCVS, found transgender people face much higher rates of violent victimization than their cisgender counterparts. The 2015 U.S. Transgender Survey, the largest survey devoted to the experience of transgender adults, 27,715 respondents, documents alarmingly high rates of harassment, assault, and violence against trans people in many spheres of life: family, schools, workplaces, public spaces. That survey and follow up reporting make clear that trans people are disproportionately on the receiving end of the violence and discrimination. Those findings are echoed in recent briefs showing an uptick of anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ plus violent incidents recorded in hate crime reports. For example, the FBI reported a notable increase in hate crimes targeting transgender and gender nonconforming people in recent years. The bottom line is the best available representative evidence shows transgender people are more likely to be targeted by violence than more likely to commit it. Number two, experts find no reliable evidence that trans people commit violent crimes at higher rates. Claims that trans people are more prone to violent crimes or that they are disproportionately responsible for mass shootings or other high-profile crimes are not supported by reliable research. Criminologists and fact checkers who study violence and terrorism repeatedly conclude there is no robust data indicating trans people commit violent crimes at higher rates than cisgender people. PolitiFact subject matter experts and academic commenters all note the lack of evidence for trans people equaling greater propensity for violent claims. Because official criminal justice data sets historically have not recorded gender identity consistently, most only record sex assigned at birth or binary categories only. The data are imperfect, but the available analysis do not show elevated violent crime rates driven by people who identify as transgender. When sensational anecdotes circulate, they're rarely representative, and experts warn against generalizing from isolated incidents to an entire population. Number three, why trans people appear in criminal legal system more often but for reasons of marginalization, not inherent criminality. Several studies and reports find that LGBTQ plus people, including many transgender people, are overrepresented at various points in the criminal legal system: arrest, detention, and incarceration. But the cause are structural: poverty, homelessness, survival crimes, which is activities people are driven to when excluded from jobs and housing, discriminatory policing, and bias within courts and jails. A national analysis noted LGBTQ plus people are more likely to be arrested and incarcerated than straight people, with worse outcomes for transgender people and people of color. But plainly, criminalization reflects social exclusion. If you push a community into poverty, homelessness, and instability, you will see more contact with law enforcement, not because identity causes crime, but because social conditions do. 4. Misplaced moral panic has real harms. The false narrative that trans people are a public safety problem does measurable damage. It legitimizes discriminatory laws, bans on public accommodations, curbs on healthcare, criminalization of certain people, increased social stigma, and correlates with higher rates of harassment and violent hate incidents. The same data sets that document victimization also show rising incidents targeted at trans people during periods of heightened anti-trans rhetoric. 5. What better policy and practice would look like. If we care about safety and justice rather than scapegoating, 3 practical shifts are clear from the evidence. 1. Improve data collection. Official crime and public health data sets must record gender identity specifically and respectfully and consistently so researchers can produce accurate, representative findings rather than leaving room for myths. Researchers have already made progress by including gender identity measures in NCBS and similar surveys. 2. Address root causes. Invest in housing, employment opportunities, access to health care, including gender-affirming care, and anti-discrimination enforcement. Reducing marginalization, reduce contact with the criminal legal system, and lowers victimization. 3. Counter stigma and rhetoric. People in public, like leaders and media, should avoid unsubstantiated claims that conflate identity with criminality. Where specific crimes occur, apply the law to individuals based on evidence, not identity, and make resources available for communities targeted by hate. People deserve to be treated as individuals, not as scapegoats. The evidence does not support the stereotype that transgender people are more likely to commit major crimes. On the contrary, the data shows we are far more likely to be a victim of violence and discrimination, and the disparities that place trans people in contact with the criminal legal system are driven by social exclusion and bias, problems that together we can all solve. If we want safer communities, we must replace fears with facts, prejudice with policy, and rumors with rigorous data collection. That's how we make justice real for everybody. And some of my sources were the gender identity disparity and criminal victimization, pooled NCVS analysis from the Williams Institute, the 2015 U.S. Transgender Survey, and reporting on LGBTQ plus overrepresentation in the legal system, UWM, and the FBI and news reporting on increases in hate crimes targeting transgender and gender nonconforming people. So there's many different places that give evidence, not just he said, she said, they said. Complete evidence that trans people are more likely to be a victim than to be out causing the unlawful activities. See y'all around, guys.